Just over 2 years ago, after decades of working, Susan became disabled. "I was newly poor and relatively terrified," she wrote. "With literally everything stripped from the budget except a roof over our heads and very modest transportation, the monthly budget showed a balance of -$5. The meaning of food insecurity became abundantly clear." Late in life, Susan had adopted 3 boys. Her circumstances made her worry nonstop about their futures and how she would keep the promises she had made to them. The psalm for this week in Lent opens with a similar worry and prayer. "I lift up my eyes to the hills," writes the psalmist. "From where will my help come?" Verse 1. One of the more frustrating responses people offer to stories of food insecurity in the United States is that one can easily figure out where to go during hard times. No matter how often the stories are shared, no matter how persistent rates of food insecurity are, one still hears, "Can't you just get welfare?" No, it doesn't exist in the ways you think it does and hasn't since the mid-1990s. "You can get food stamps, can't you?" Sure, but these average only $175 a month, and for certain age groups are available for only 3 months. Unfortunately, the reality for many food-insecure families and individuals in the U.S. is that public programs are often difficult to access, and many people lack social support systems that can help them when something goes wrong. Even if programs and support systems are available and accessible, being food insecure or living in poverty carry stigmas, much like the ones we discussed in the last session of this study. This can make it hard to know where to turn and to find the confidence necessary to make that turn once we arrive at it. For Susan, coming from a middle-class background meant having to face the stigma of food insecurity head-on. She remembers watching a food distribution at the Westview Hub, the Hub, a community center serving neighbors in Pittsburgh. "I still had the haughty air of someone who recently belonged to the middle class, so rather than inquire, I watched. After some time, a person from the Hub started to talk with her. The Hub was distributing milk and eggs, and there was a long line of clients. Susan had planned to observe only, but a volunteer invited her to find a place in the line, and she went home with food and money to spare for the week. For her, the change was immediate. All of a sudden, I went from -$5 to +$45 for the month," she wrote. "I could breathe." The food pantry is just one part of the Hub, which is supported by an ELCA World Hunger Grant through Berkeley Hills Lutheran Church, an early partner in the work. In addition to food, the Hub provides a local library, internet access, and other support the community needs. More importantly, the Hub fosters new relationships among neighbors. "The food pantry was just the beginning," explained Susan. "We found a home there, we found family there." Through ELCA World Hunger, our church is committed to supporting transformative, integrated, and holistic ministries that address the root causes of hunger. To put it more simply, these ministries break down barriers within communities and work with other partners to address the multiple needs people face. If we are serious about our church ending hunger, each of these steps will be important, yet we also need to remember that the most important ministry is being present. God's invitation for us to build a just world where all are fed comes out of our own experience as people saved by grace. As told in Holy Scripture, the entire history of the people of God is the story of God being present with the people, especially when they felt alone. Look at Psalm 121:1-4. "I lift up my eyes to the hills. From where will my help come? My help comes from you, Lord, who made heaven and earth. You will not let your foot be moved. Those who keep you will not slumber. They who keep Israel will neither slumber nor sleep." 1:4. Reading this psalm, indeed reading all the Bible, we might sum up the character of God in a single phrase: relentless presence. God is relentlessly present with the people. From the Garden of Eden to Egypt to the wilderness, God is present. From Israel to Judah to exile to return, God is present. The spirituality of the Lenten season, indeed a key purpose of Lenten fasting, is to remind us of our dependence on God. We remember in these 40 days our need for God's grace, God's provision, and God's help in the moments when we can't help ourselves. Yet we also remember that the good news of grace is the good news, that God will be relentlessly present with us always to the end of the age. Matthew 28-20. That is part of what makes the work of the Westview Hub so important and so transformative for neighbors such as Susan. Being present, listening to our neighbors' needs, and offering words of welcome and hope are what it means to be saved by a relentlessly present God. This season, we are called to remember our times of need when God showed up and to remember our calling to do the same. As church, we respond to hunger for many reasons. Sometimes our compassion pulls us to meet the needs of our neighbors. Other times we may feel a sense of responsibility to care for the people God places in our midst. At all times, though, we do this work because we are set free by grace to be relentlessly present in our own communities, so that every time a neighbor, friend, or stranger wonders, "From where will my help come?" the people of God will reply, "Here. Here, you are welcome. Here, you will be fed. Here, we will meet our needs together."